The golden light of late afternoon bathed the training field at Fort Bragg Military Base in North Carolina. Alexandra Winter, or Alex as she preferred to be called, breathed heavily as she ran the obstacle course for the third consecutive time. At 28, she was one of the few women in the Advanced Special Operations Training Program, and each day was a battle not only against physical limitations, but against the constant skepticism that surrounded her. Faster, Winters. My 90-year-old grandmother could do this circuit better than you. Sergeant Miller's voice echoed across the field, his face red with anger, or perhaps from the sweltering July heat. Alex ignored the comment, focusing only on the next obstacle, a 5-meter wall she needed to climb. Her muscles burned, protesting against the effort after almost 10 hours of uninterrupted training, but she refused to show any sign of weakness. That was what Miller wanted. That was what everyone expected for her to give up. The truth was that Alex was there not only by personal choice, but as part of a pilot program that integrated women into traditionally male units of the American Army. A program that many, including Miller, considered an affront to military tradition. You're holding up the whole group, Winters. Because of you, everyone will go without dinner tonight, Miller shouted, provoking resentful glances from the other 22 soldiers. All men, all exhausted. Alex ignored the injustice. She wasn't late. In fact, she was among the top 10 in the group, but she was always Miller's favorite target. When she finally finished the circuit, Miller was waiting for her, his look of contempt, undisguised formation. Now, he ordered the group. The soldiers lined up quickly, their muscles trembling with exhaustion, their uniforms soaked with sweat. Thanks to the mediocre performance of some, Miller began, looking directly at Alex. We're going to do an extra exercise today. A collective groan, quickly suppressed, echoed through the formation. Hand-to-hand combat, Robinson and Winters. In the center. Now, Alex felt a chill run down his spine. Robinson was the biggest man in the group, almost 2 meters tall and over 100 kilos of muscle. A former college football player, he was also one of those who most resented his presence. Sergeant, we just completed the circuit 3 times. Alex protested. Safety protocol recommends. Are you questioning my orders, Winters? Miller interrupted, moving so close she could smell his coffee breath. Perhaps you're not ready for this program after all. Alex swallowed hard. That was exactly what he wanted. An excuse to kick her out. No, sir, she replied, taking a step forward. Robinson smiled as he entered the makeshift circle formed by the other soldiers. Some seemed uncomfortable with the situation, but no one dared to protest. Simple rules, Miller announced. 5 minutes or until one of you can't continue. No eye or throat strikes. Begin? Before Alex could even get into a proper position, Robinson lunged forward, throwing a straight punch that she narrowly dodged. Adrenaline surged, momentarily replacing exhaustion. Alex was good at hand-to-hand combat. Very good, actually. Before joining the army, she had trained in jiu-jitsu for years and knew how to use an opponent's weight against them. But after 10 hours of intense training, her reflexes were impaired, her muscles heavy. Robinson continued attacking, lacking refined technique, but with intimidating brute force. Alex managed to block and deflect most of the blows, but each impact on his forearms hurt as if his bones were about to break. Come on, princess, fight for real, Robinson taunted while the other soldiers watched in silence. Alex saw an opening and attacked, landing a precise kick to the side of Robinson. He staggered, surprised, and she took advantage to deliver a flurry of blows that made him retreat. For a moment, Miller's expression changed surprise, perhaps even a hint of respect, but it was quickly replaced by something harsher when Robinson regained his balance. You bitch! Robinson muttered, low enough for only Alex to hear, and lunged forward again. What happened next was too fast. Robinson feigned a move, and as Alex positioned herself to defend, he changed direction and landed a direct punch to her face. The force of the impact sent her head spinning to the side, and she felt the metallic taste of blood fill her mouth as she staggered backward. A deathly silence fell over the group. Strikes to the face were not allowed in training. Everyone knew that. Alex regained his balance, touching the corner of his mouth, which was already beginning to swell. His eyes met Miller's, who remained impassive, as if nothing unusual had happened. At that moment, a series of military vehicles entered through the base's main gate, not far from the training field. A convoy through jeeps and 2 light armor vehicles approached rapidly, blocking the gate through which soldiers normally exited after training. "Attention!" Miller shouted suddenly, and everyone stood to attention, including Alex, who felt a momentary dizziness as he straightened up. From the second jeep stepped an imposing figure, General David Harrison, commander of the base and one of the most respected figures in the American Army. He was not alone. Accompanying him were 2 men in civilian clothes, whom Alex immediately recognized as representatives of the Pentagon, as well as a middle-aged woman wearing a colonel's uniform. "Rest," Miller ordered as the general and his entourage approached. "Sergeant Miller reporting, sir." General Harrison did not respond immediately. His eyes scanned the line of exhausted soldiers until they stopped on Alex. His face bruised and a trickle of blood running down the corner of his mouth. "What's going on here, Sergeant?" The general's voice was calm, almost soft, but it carried an undeniable authority. "Regular hand-to-hand combat training, sir," Miller replied promptly. The general approached Alex, examining his face without touching him. "Soldier, you're injured. Explain." Alex hesitated, aware that his answer could define not only his future, but that of the entire integration program. "An accident during training, sir," she finally replied, swallowing the blood in her mouth. The female colonel stepped forward, her penetrating gaze shifting from Alex to Miller. "I'm Colonel Patricia Hayes, head of the Armed Forces Gender Integration Commission," she introduced herself. "We're here for an unannounced inspection of the pilot program." Her attention returned to Alex, and "It seems we've arrived at an interesting time." Miller visibly paled, but maintained his composure. "General, I suggest we continue this conversation in my office," he tried. "That won't be necessary," the general replied, still watching Alex. "Soldier, I want to hear exactly what happened, and I want the truth." The words hung in the air like a sentence. Alex knew that lying to a superior officer was a serious violation of the military code, but he also knew that telling the truth would mean antagonizing not only Miller, but potentially many of his colleagues. Before he could answer, one of the soldiers stepped forward. "With your permission, sir." It was Jenkins, one of the few who treated her with respect. Private Winters was hit in the face during hand-to-hand combat, contrary to safety protocols, and this happened after 3 complete rounds of the obstacle course, also contrary to safety guidelines that recommend adequate rest between high-intensity exercises. A murmur ran through the group as Miller shot Jenkins a murderous glare. "Is that true, Sergeant?" asked the general, his voice still calm, but now with an underlying harshness. Miller hesitated, his eyes darting between the general and the Pentagon representatives, who were watching the scene with evident interest. "We are training soldiers for real combat situations, sir," he finally replied. "Sometimes it's necessary to push the limits." The general nodded slowly. "Colonel Hayes, please escort Private Winters to the infirmary for treatment. As for the rest of you," he addressed the group, "you are dismissed. Sergeant Miller, you will come with me." As Alex followed Colonel Hayes toward the infirmary, she could feel the other soldiers' stares on her back, some sympathetic, others resentful, as if she had deliberately created the situation. "You're not the first, you know," Colonel Hayes remarked as they walked. "And unfortunately, you won't be the last." "First, what, Mom?" Alex asked, though he already suspected the answer. "The first woman to face this kind of unofficial test," Hayes replied. "I went through it too, more than 20 years ago, when women started entering areas that were previously exclusively male." Alex remained silent, processing the information. "What will happen to Sergeant Miller?" she finally. "That depends partly on you," Hayes replied. "You'll need to make a formal statement." Alex felt the weight of the responsibility. Her statement could end Miller's career, but it could also jeopardize the entire integration program if it appeared that the women couldn't handle the pressure without outside intervention. In the infirmary, while the doctor examined her face, Alex made her decision. She would tell the truth, the whole truth, But she would also make it clear that she didn't want special treatment, that she was there on her own merit and would continue, despite everything. What Alex didn't know was that this incident would change not only his career, but the entire training program at Fort Bragg. 2 weeks later, Alex sat in a conference room in the base's administration building. Her face still bore the marks of the beating, a visible reminder of what had happened. Beside her were Jenkins and 2 other soldiers who had decided to support her. Across the table were General Harrison, Colonel Hayes, and representatives from the Pentagon. After a thorough review of the testimonies and security camera footage, the general began. "We have determined that there were serious violations of safety protocols during the training exercise on July 15th. He paused, his gaze fixed on Alex. "Sergeant Miller has been removed from his duty and will face a disciplinary board." Alex nodded, feeling a mixture of relief and concern. However, this situation also revealed systemic flaws in the integration program, the general continued. "It is not enough to simply add women to existing units without rethinking some fundamental aspects of training." Colonel Hayes took the floor. "That's why we're proposing a complete review of the program, and we'd like you, Private Winters, to actively participate in this process." Alex blinked, surprised. "Me, ma'am? You have demonstrated not only exceptional competence, but also integrity and resilience," Hayes explained. "We need people who have experienced the real challenges to help shape you in the following." Alex was temporarily assigned to the integration program. Her time was divided between regular training, now overseen by a significantly fairer new instructor, and meetings with military training specialists, psychologists, and senior officers. Robinson, the soldier who had shot her, was transferred to another unit after a formal apology. That sounded more like a formality than genuine remorse. Jenkins, on the other hand, was promoted and became a valuable ally in the review process. The change was neither easy nor quick. There was resistance, sarcastic comments in the hallways, even an anonymous letter suggesting that Alex had seduced the general to gain preferential treatment. But for every voice of opposition, others of support emerged. Veterans who recognized the need for modernization, young officers who saw the potential of a more inclusive and efficient army. 6 months after the incident, Alex was back at the training camp, but this time as part of a mixed instruction team implementing the new protocol she had helped create. The program had been redesigned to emphasize merit and specific skills, rather than pure physical strength or endurance. "Attention," she called to the new group of recruitsmen and women who lined up before her. "My name is Sergeant Winters. Welcome to Fort Bragg's new advanced training program." As she observed the faces before her, some anxious, others skeptical, many simply determined, Alex couldn't help but think about the path that had led her there. A single moment of violence, witnessed at the exact moment by people with the power to make a difference, had triggered a transformation that few believed possible. The new system wasn't perfect. She knew that. There was still resistance, still challenges to overcome. But now there was a clear path, a structure that allowed everyone, regardless of gender, to be judged by their competence and dedication, not by ingrained prejudices. As Alex led the group through their first day of training, she noticed a young soldier who stood out for her quiet determination, reminding her of herself not so long ago. "Private Chun," she called after the initial exercise. "Good job on the obstacle course. Keep up the pace." The recruit's brief, grateful smile confirmed what Alex already knew. Sometimes, all someone needed was to be seen, truly seen for their merits, and that simple recognition could be enough to get through the toughest times. That evening, while completing his daily report, Alex received a notification on his official tablet. The Fort Bragg pilot program had been approved for national expansion. In the coming weeks, officers from military bases across the country would arrive to observe and learn from their model. The news brought a smile to his face, still subtly marked by the scar left by Robinson. Blow! That mark, which once represented humiliation and injustice, now symbolized something completely different, the catalyst for a necessary, long overdue change. The next day, as Alex entered the cafeteria for breakfast, he noticed something different. The usual groups, segregated by gender or unit, had given way to a more integrated environment. At a nearby table, Jenkins was chatting animatedly with two new instructors, a man and a woman, about training strategy. "Can I join you?" Alex asked, tray in hand. "We were just talking about you, Sergeant," replied the instructor, Captain Rodriguez. "Or should I say, almost Lieutenant Winters?" Alex paused, confused. "How?" Jenkins smiled. "The paperwork is being processed. General Harrison personally approved your promotion last night. Congratulations." The news caught her by surprise. A promotion meant more responsibilities, but also more opportunities to influence positive change. "I wasn't aware of that," Alex admitted, sitting down. "And there's more," Jenkins continued. "The program is receiving national attention. It looks like a team of journalists will be coming next week for a special report." Alex frowned. Publicity wasn't exactly what she was looking for. "I'm not sure if this is a good idea. Would you prefer that the story not be told?" Rodriguez asked. "Because it will be, one way or another. It's better that it's told the right way, don't you think?" Alex reflected on this as she ate. The truth was that her personal story had become something bigger than herself. For some people, especially young women considering a military career, it could be an inspiration. For others, an example of how traditional institutions can adapt and evolve without losing their essence or effectiveness. The following week, while preparing for the interview, Alex received an unexpected visit. Colonel Hayes entered his newly assigned office, carrying a thick briefcase. "Lieutenant Winters," Hayes greeted her with a smile. "How are you adjusting to your new responsibilities?" "Still getting used to the title, to be honest," Alex replied. "But the job itself, I think I've been ready for this for a while now." Hayes nodded, placing the folder on the table. "This is for you. I thought you should see it before the interview tomorrow." Alex opened the folder and found dozens of letters, some handwritten, others printed, all addressed to her or to the program she now coordinated. "They are female military personnel from all over the country," Hayes explained. "Some are veterans like me, others are still on active duty, and many are aspiring women who have heard about the changes here." Alex picked up one of the letters at random and began to read. It was from a lieutenant serving in Afghanistan, describing how the news of the reforms at Fort Bragg had given her and her colleagues new hope for the future of their careers. Another letter, handwritten by a Gulf War veteran, spoke of experiences similar to Alex's, but at a time when there was no institutional support or mechanisms to address such situations. "This is incredible," Alex murmured, flipping through a few more cards. "It's the impact you're having," Hayes replied. "I wanted you to see this before you speak to reporters tomorrow, to remember that, although your personal experience has been difficult, the outcome is benefiting many others." When the team of journalists arrived the next day, Alex was ready. She took them on a tour of the training camp, showing them the new facilities and methods, explaining how each change had been carefully designed to maintain the highest standards while eliminating unnecessary barriers. "And what about the incident that started all this?" the lead reporter asked during the formal interview. "Do you believe it was an isolated case or symptomatic of deeper problems?" Alex paused, carefully considering her answer. It wasn't an isolated incident, nor was it the worst example. It was simply the most visible because it happened at the exact moment when people with the authority to make changes could witness it. She unconsciously touched the small scar at the corner of her mouth. "What we've learned is that we don't need to wait for moments like this. We can actively seek out problems and correct them before they cause damage." "Do you harbor any resentment about what happened?" the reporter insisted. Alex smiled slightly. "Resentment builds nothing. I prefer to focus on what we're building here. A better system, not just for women, but for all soldiers. Because ultimately, what we want are the most qualified and dedicated people defending our country, regardless of gender." A full year after the incident, Fort Bragg hosted a ceremony marking the official success of the pilot program and its national implementation. General Harrison, about to retire, made a point of being present. Colonel Hayes, now a brigadier general, was also there, along with high-ranking officers from Washington. Alex, recently promoted to captain, was on stage along with Jenkins and other architects of the transformed program. As she observed the audience, a mix of military personnel of all ranks, journalists, and even some politicians, she noticed a familiar face in the last row. Sergeant Miller, now demoted and transferred to an administrative role, watched the ceremony with an unreadable expression. Their eyes met briefly, and Alex felt a strange sense of closure. The man who had tried to destroy her had unintentionally paved the way for her rise, and for changes he probably still despised. Later, during the reception, General Harrison called her aside to a quiet corner. "Captain Winters," he began, "I wanted to tell you personally how proud I am of what you helped build here." "Thank you, sir," Alex replied, "but it was a collective effort." "Yes, but it needed a catalyst," he insisted. "You know, that day, when I saw what had happened to you, initially I was furious, but then I realized that it was exactly what we needed to force a change that had been delayed for too long." He paused. "What I mean is that your ability to transform that moment of injustice into something positive and constructive, well, that's true leadership." As the general stepped aside to greet other guests, Alex reflected on her journey, from a young soldier determined to prove her worth to a respected officer helping to shape the future of the American Army. That night, returning to her quarters, she found an envelope under her. Inside was a single sheet of paper with a brief message. "Thank you for clearing the way, Private Chun." Alex smiled, putting the note in his drawer along with the letters he continued to receive from women, military personnel from all over the country. The incident that could have ended her career had become the beginning of something much bigger than herself. And that, perhaps, was the greatest victory of all.